Hey everybody, how's it going? It's your boy Devin Swirl back again with another video. I'm sorry for the break in the videos. This month has been pretty crazy for me. At the time of recording this, yesterday was my birthday, and the day prior was my wedding anniversary. Plus, we had Mother's Day. If you don't know, I'm a new dad, so we had to celebrate Mother's Day. And yeah, there was just like a lot going on. There was a lot to work around. I'm hoping to get back on track with the videos, but until the end of May, I'm probably going to be pretty booked up. So expect regular, consistent videos to hopefully continue in June. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, we can get to why you're really here, and that's to watch my review of Haunted Hearts by Young Van. Shout out to Van for sending me the album early and letting me get absolutely prepared to pump out this huge and very in-depth video on the album. If I miss a few things, forgive me. I went through every song because I think that this album is a really big deal, especially to the underground community. I wanted to go through with a fine-tooth comb and really make it thorough. So forgive me if I miss a few things, but I did my best. I'm trying to get this video out, on the day of release. So yeah, there's just a lot to cover. So I hope you do enjoy this video. If you do, leave a like, share, comment, and let's jump right into this album. To put it in simple terms, overall, this album is just really, really good. I would say even outstanding. It's a hyper-realistic depiction of the peaks and valleys of a rocky relationship in figurative and literal ways. And we'll get into some of that later. But honestly, you're going to hear throughout this review that Van really made almost no errors in crafting a cohesive album in terms of the content and the sound. One of the most important things I like to highlight in every album review, and we're going through every song here, but specifically just the opening track of an album. I think it really sets the tone for the rest of everything that you're going to listen to. And from the moment I started listening to this album, I could tell that the production was just going to be crazy on this album. Performances were going to be passionate, and flows were going to be very intentional and also catchy and sort of mainstream in some ways. So I thought that was pretty awesome. And the reason I knew that this was all going to be true was that the opening track, Ambivalence, is kind of embodies all of these things that I mentioned, all of these little categories that these different songs can fall into. Ambivalence is sort of a little bit of all of them. I would consider this track to be sort of a Midwest emo style, and I think it had some pretty sick flows, and I think Van really just came out swinging. It has a lot of great storytelling, something that's true throughout the whole record, but on this track, I also think that the guitar melody sort of caught me immediately. It was very intriguing. It was kind of different. Like, when I first heard the guitar melody, I'm like, what flow is he going to choose here? And I think it has an interesting groove, and I think Van found a nice pocket on this, which I thought was really nice. Not to mention, there was a little switch up at the end with the beat, and Van had some more powerful vocals there at the end. I felt like that was just icing on the cake. I think that this song kind of really embodies, the drastic production that we were going to see, and also really cool flows, very intentional flows, very intentional storytelling. These are all things that we see throughout the rest of the record, but this song specifically, I think, sort of, sets the bar really high. When you come in listening to this track, you have super high expectations for what you're going to hear the rest of the way through. And then this opening track is followed by two very great singles that were released from this album. Starting with the very first one is Honest with Sad Boy Prolific. This song has an amazing hook and a really great flow. I think the Sad Boy feature was pretty solid. I think he matched the energy well, even though I felt like the delivery was maybe a little bit more nonchalant, maybe a little bit more laid back. Somehow I feel like the passion in the words and, the authenticity of the words was still there. Like, I think that it still matched Van's decision-making on the hook, if that makes sense. It's like Van kind of has this very melodic, very passionate feel to most of the vocals I've heard from him. And the Sad Boy feature was a little bit more like lackadaisical, but it also still felt like it was real and coming from an authentic place, is what I mean. Moving on to the next single was Losing Meaning. I think that this song's vibe is pretty low-key, but I think Van's voice is actually what really brings this song to life with lots of emotion. he says his words are losing meaning, and he has, agony in his voice as he's saying this to his love interest. And I think it's a dynamic where he's kind of fighting for, this love interest that I mentioned. But he knows that his words sort of aren't hitting quite the same as maybe they used to. And they're sort of losing meaning very quickly with this person. I think that the beat switch at the end really ties the song together. I think the guitar solo is dope. I think that the very hard synth that comes in on top is also very awesome. I think that this is probably some of the best production I've heard this year. So great job on this one as well. Then comes I Hate That I Miss You, which was a song that I was actually surprised because I was informed by a friend that, Young Van and Powfu had worked together in the past. I'm not necessarily super familiar with all of Young Van's catalog, but I did not see this collab coming, just to be frank. It was unexpected. But I think it actually works very well. There's a lo-fi mix on the vocals. I feel like they're sort of in the background for Young Van specifically. I mean, his vocals kind of feel like they're in the background. The beat sort of feels like in the foreground. They almost seem like the vocals are almost whispered. I even think that the vocals have, I hope this isn't like a rude comparison, but I think they even have sort of like an MGK style delivery almost, which was kind of interesting. I think that the Powfu feature is pretty awesome as well. I think that their vocals are kind of more in the foreground, which provides a cool dichotomy to the track, and it kind of counteracts Van's more low-key delivery. I think that the themes of this song sort of match what we've been seeing so far. Van seems to be having a hard time leaving his love interest behind based on the words of the track, and it seems like it sort of directly plays off the last song. So I think that in terms of structure of the album, I think that this is a nice chronological choice. Then on My Side of the Bed, it sort of sounds like the aftermath of all this, the aftermath of a breakup that Van maybe didn't really want to follow through with. They keep coming back to each other, and Van continues to give in to his desire to be with this person, even though maybe it's not exactly the right thing for him. I think there's a cool little vocal sample in the middle of the track leading to a switch up to something more upbeat later in the track in terms of like the production. And I think it provides for a very like literal experience. This is sort of what I referenced in the beginning. A very literal experience for the listener of the back and forth in Van's head, sort of like symbolic through the sounds of this beat. I think that the switch up at the very end is pretty manic, and it's sort of to show and exemplify the feelings of what Van feels when he reunites with this love interest. And that's just sort of how I'm interpreting it. I'm assuming, because Van does seem like a very intentional artist, especially from what I've heard from this. I mean, this album is a story. It is a story. It's very obviously a story, and I think that he does a great job of making it that way. So I'm assuming that the beat choices and things of that nature, where there's lots of switch ups on the beats and stuff like that, I think all of those were choices that were done intentionally to try to play into that story and play into the emotional parts of the songs that you gather as a listener. But then after this song, the album takes a pretty hard right turn with the song Haunted Hearts, the namesake of the album. It's the first alternative rock track of the album, but I think that the production on Van's voice on this is, it's sort of like he's made for a song like this. His harmonies on this sound pretty legit, like studio quality. Not that the rest of this album doesn't, but this song especially sounds like it's top tier. And I could hear this on like alternative rock radio almost. It was a very catchy hook that got stuck in my head on first listen. And I thought the bridge was nice, but I think it extended the song a little bit long. This was my only gripe with this song. I think it could have ended before the bridge. I think it extended the song maybe a little too long. I was kind of satisfied at the end of the hook before the bridge. So that's my only critique of this, my first critique of really anything on this album so far. So that says a lot. Next was another alternative rock track, and it's called Surrender, and it's with Vito. The Vito feature sort of sounded interesting to me. I think it's one of the weaker features on the album, and that's no shade towards Vito. I actually Really like Vito's music, especially when he kind of performs in a softer tone on some of his more low key stuff. I thought his screaming was nice on like his verse, but I kind of had a hard time taking the really high pitched vocals on the hook seriously, and the glitched kind of background vocals on the hook also weren't really my favorite. Van sort of slows it down after the second hook and comes in with some strong vocals on his verse. I could have done without more of the background vocals on the verse, but after the third hook, there's a pretty nice breakdown at the end, and Van takes us through the outro. And I think that, on a personal level, the song isn't my favorite, but in terms of the story of the album, I do see how this fits. So I'm not going to, take too much away from this, but this was really the only song on the album that I would say that I just personally wasn't the biggest fan of. But once again, that says a lot. Like, all of these songs have been great so far, and to have, one out of, 7 songs so far, that somebody isn't a big fan of, I mean, come on. How often does that happen? Then on track number 8, Liar has some peaking drums and distorted parts of the track that I thought were pretty tasteful and well done. The hard guitar sounded pretty fucking cool. I really like the flow from Van on this. And then the Forever Falling feature with some cool R&B drums was a nice change up. I think there were some great harmonies on the pre-chorus leading into the final hook, and I just think this song was very well performed. I think this was one of the stronger singing performances on the track. I think that the strongest singing performance of the whole track comes a little bit later, but this one was great. After the Fall is the 9th track of this album, and it's a cool little D&B track with a lot of overlaying vocals on the hook, but I think they sound really good and not really overdone. Sometimes songs like this can get pretty cluttered. I don't think this one felt that way. I think that it's a nice contrast from the verses on the song as well, which are pretty much just one layer. Otherwise, I think that the track is pretty standard and is a decent role player on the track, but wasn't my favorite, also wasn't my least favorite. I think it just kind of falls in there and is just more of like a story continuer leading us to the outro. And then on the final track called The Ground with Phil Dell, I covered this on a top 5 songs video. It was the number 1 song of the week when this song came out as a single, but it has beautiful soft vocals from Van, very, very clear and gorgeous vocals from Phil Dell, as I covered before. I think it's very different from what we've heard throughout the rest of the record, but I think it's super well executed, and it gives us this eerie, mysterious feel sort of at the end, but also provides us kind of the closure of the story that we've been hearing the whole time. I think that this song gives the vibe that they're sort of singing back and forth to each other, and it has a nice rock breakdown at the end and an amazing vocal performance from Van and Phil Dell. Like I said, collectively, this song just has the absolute best singing performances of the whole record, and I think that this is super well done. Overall, I genuinely, from a review perspective and a fan perspective, I just really enjoyed listening to this album. I actually think that right now, I would say this is probably my album of the year. I think it's a bold statement to put out right now. There's a lot of the year left, but so far, I haven't heard anything better than this. So definitely a great job. Obviously, this album's not perfect. There were still some gripes I had with it. So I'm going to give it a flat 9 out of 10. But I do believe that's our strongest album rating we've had so far. So great job, Young Van. Thank you once again for letting me review this early. And I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, like, share, comment. I do have more reviews coming. I apologize for those of you who have sent me albums and I haven't gotten to them yet. I've had a very busy month. I will review your albums, so I'm sorry. I will get to them, but yeah, I really hope you guys did enjoy this though, and I hope to be back making consistent content in June. So yeah, looking forward to that, and I will see you then. See ya.